It's
now
been
we're there.
fixed. I am a professional streamer, content creator. Okay, so Bael, please tell us about yourself. Thank you so much.
The elevator pitch now, the third attempt. The yeah, so you can call me Lord Bael. You can call me Bael, whatever you want to call. I'll semi-dox myself. You can also call me Bob, is my other name. Yeah, been doing Twitch for, it'll be a year in July, I want to say. So still relatively new in the grand scheme of things to the world of streaming. Been doing music though, probably as my primary like creative output, as you were mentioning, content creation. Doing music since freshman or sophomore year of high school, in various capacities, either like in a band, or I went to school for music tech, and so I did some more like formal stuff there. And then currently playing in a band here in Louisville as well. So I would say music is probably the biggest artistic output, followed then by the recent addition of Twitch as a creative piece. Right.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Twitch.
Thank you for having me.
How has the journey been for you, starting out on Twitch? I know that's like, it's different for everybody. So like, what was the reasoning why you were like, okay, well, I mean, this Twitch thing looks pretty fucking cool. I'm gonna start live streaming. What got you into that?
So the like backstory would basically be, so like I was aware or cognizant of Twitch as a platform and of streaming. You know, I don't know when Twitch actually started. Like, when did they first do the thing? But I was aware of like the idea of playing video games and having people tune in. And I remember talking to someone about it and specifically saying like, what is the appeal? Why would you do that? That's dumb. like you're just sitting there watching them play. That's no fun. And sometime like near maybe May or June of last year, so whenever the pandemic was and lockdowns were starting to happen, and you're looking for media to consume to kind of take your mind off of things, I saw a friend of mine had posted, like, I just happened to see her Twitter post. She was like, hey, I'm going live on Twitch. I was like, I'll tune into that. And I tuned in and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is super engaged and interactive, and like it's just like hanging out in a room with someone, but instead you're separated and distanced and safe. And you're able to engage with them as part of the platform. And so Shred X Velvet was my homie who was doing that. And so I was watching her for about like a month or so, and I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna dip my toe in the water, right? This looks fun. And like I know a couple friends that are nerds enough to want to tune in, and maybe we can hang out that way since we can't hang out in person. And so about July of last year is whenever I first started trying it out. I tried my first hand at Facebook gaming. So that didn't go great. I couldn't get anything to work. Like nothing was connecting. Like the bit rate was terrible. And you learn a lot of trial and error, right? You try and connect the systems and they disconnect and it looks very silly, but enough repetition and enough successful attempts. And got up and rolling and felt pretty confident in what I was doing, and here we are. 9 months, 10 months later, feeling pretty good on the platform. So.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like the initial interaction with most people on Twitch can come from like a really weird space, and I agree. It was like really strange for me to like why people go online to watch games, and for a while like it was just competitive. It was competitive gaming on Twitch, where it wasn't like casual.
It wasn't personalities. It was purely for the pro sports, the esports team is playing here or whatever. Yeah, you wanted to watch League. You wanted to watch. I would, if I could remember. My brother watches Pro League, Pro League of Legends stuff, and I would name drop a team, but I can't remember any of them. So
that's okay. Yeah, I feel like Cloud9 is one that I hear a lot.
That's the one that he talks about. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You're much more in tune to it than I am. I just go whatever you say.
It was honestly just a guess, because like Cloud9, like I was like, they do CS:GO, and they're like, I remember being at it was TwitchCon 2018, 2018, and I was with some for me. I don't know how you handle the internet, but for me, there is just too much information. So like, rather than pursuing everything, I tend to stick with like sections that I'm comfortable with, and then people like I encourage people to present stuff to me. Because like I don't know, I like if I get turned on to something, then it's super awesome, but it's just too much, you know. So Twitch was one of those things too. Like for me, it was like I don't know what this is, so I knew somebody IRL who started Twitch streaming, and I was watching their content, and I was like, not to be an asshole, but I was just super unimpressed with it. You know, I was just like, I mean, I don't understand why people watch you, to be honest. Like, that's fucking weird. And so I got into this weird funk with Twitch for a bit, and where it was very ego driven, and I was like, I'm funny, I could get people to watch me, and that never happened. But that was I took like a huge break, and then started watching a few other streamers and following games, and then I found a community that I was like, these fucking people are cool as shit.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, I feel like that's you touched on something there. You said you saw your friend doing it, and you're like, not to be a dip, you're like, I could do this, but better. Like I know how to approach, and that's, I feel like, a pretty natural human thing, right? Is that ingrained competition. Like even introverts like me, who generally tend to kind of sit back and be like, I don't need to be the center of attention. I hate it. I despise it. My wife threw a surprise birthday party for me where she called all of my friends from like my hometown, and she was like, let's go to this Mexican restaurant you've been wanting to try. I was like, okay. And we went, and then like they were all there, and I was just like, oh, like I should be happy that my friends are here, but why am I the center of attention on my birthday? No. But like, you know, that competitive spirit starts to rear its head. You're like, wait a second, I know I can do this. I feel that entirely. That subconscious, like, I'm going to show how good I am.
Yeah.
When you see someone that's doing it not as good as maybe you think they could do it. That's the piece that gets me, is if I know someone should be better than me and they're not, I get frustrated, because I'm like, well, if they can't, like, I know they can do it better, so I'm going to try and do it better than them, because then they're going to see me doing it better than them, and then they'll do it better than me, and then the world will be right.
Yes.
We will fix everything. I do that with my bandmates all the time. So I'm like, you can play this part. I know you can, because here, I'm going to play it, and I'm a way worse guitar player than you are. He's like, oh, you're right. You are a worse guitar player. He's like, you're terrible. And I'm like, I know. I'll do it better.
So I guess so you went from thinking Twitch was just people watching play games, and then you found like a deeper form of connection, right? Yeah. So what is connection? What, everybody's got their own interpretation of like connection. What does connection mean for LordBael? It means a lot of things, right? And it means I don't think there's one universal theme for connection, because you can connect with people in different ways. Like, right. I'm not asking that. I'm asking what it means for you.
No, sorry. That's for me. It's this wide array, right? I don't feel one particular definition. I connect with people my personal connection with one person over something, even if it's the same topic from the same background, might be completely different just based on how the personalities seem to mesh, right? And I mean, so that's like one facet of it. There's the facet of just like a connection with someone on something like a TV show that we both like is a very different connection than connecting with someone on, you know, your backgrounds being shared or your experiences being shared in life or work or other more like, you know, serious topics. Not that like a TV show can't be serious to you, but you know, like if those lived experiences are different, then that connection is definitionally different, right?
Yeah.
So for me, you know, like I've built connections with some people where we've met mutual streamers, and we've, you know, hit it off in chat because we have similar senses of humor, we have similar ways of responding to things, or similar thoughts on different topics. And so I have that set of connections I've made. But then I have these other ones where it's like, you know, I would consider these people I've never met in person, I would consider them friends just based on the depth of other conversations that were initiated on Twitch and then taken generally to Discord, because we're not talking about like our lives generally in Twitch chat. That usually happens elsewhere, not being broadcast. But yeah, you know, it's a different connection with each interaction, right?
Yeah I think that like Well, you haven't had you've only been streaming for 9 months, so you haven't had a chance to go like to a TwitchCon or visit any online friends, have you?
No, the closest that I would say to that is it's planned. I mean, at the end of it, right now it's just a verbal agreement, or not even a verbal agreement. I said, hey guys, our album release is October 16th. You're gonna come down to it from Cincinnati. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna have some porch beers and some porch pizzas, and then you can come to the release show. And they all expressed interest in that. So that would be the closest to the what's the word, like the carrying over of the Twitch world into IRL.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's an exciting moment. I remember like my first moment of doing that with friends was at TwitchCon. And it was a moment that was completely disarming. Like I cried. Like it was beautiful. It was like everybody's got legs. And I don't know what it is. It's something about the human brain where like everything is way more meaningful when it's physically in front of you. Cause like it's tangible, you know, like even though I know these are real people and like people that are in the chat, like, hey, Cletus and Adam, like these people, like I know they're actually people sitting on a keyboard and typing to me. It's not tangible until they're in front of me. And being surrounded by people that like I had been building a relationship over the course of like almost a year and a half, 2 years, and meeting in person was like an elevated feeling. So I'm excited for you to actually like get to experience that, and especially without any implications with like or any obligations related to like needing to be anywhere. Especially if it's like not at TwitchCon. That's what we were talking about with all our friends. It was like TwitchCon's awesome because we get to meet a lot of people that we care about, but like let's fucking not do that. Like can we not spend a lot of money in California and just like rent an Airbnb because we trust each other and shit, you know? So it's like
hang and do something low key. And I think that's probably I would hope that the discussion of them coming down, because it's really funny. One of them is up in Cincinnati area, but they're originally from where I'm from in Louisville. And so they, they're from Louisville, so like they can come back anytime they want. They've got that connection to the city. And then one of their friends is still in Louisville that like, again, it's one of those guys where like I feel, relatively close. Like we've chatted a couple times and such. I would call him a friend, but we've never met in person, even though he's in the same city that I am. Like I know where he lives. I don't have his house number. I can't go show up in the middle of the night, but I know the area he lives. He knows where I live. We're aware of our general proximities, and yet we've never just been like, hey man, like you want to just go down to Mag and get a pizza at Donisi and just hang? Like it's just not happened. So I'm excited for that to happen as part of that.
Yeah, that level of connection just runs a lot deeper. Like having been on the platform for a bit, like there are some people that I just I didn't think would have been as close to me as possible. And growing up, it was always like you don't make friends with people online.
You don't know who that person is.
You don't know who they are.
That could be a government agent in disguise, and you're going to go to try and hang out with them, and they're going to say, listen here, sir, I heard those words you said on Halo 3. You're arrested. And they slap the cuffs on you and go, darn,
that's true.
You got me. Like, we saw the Metallica CDs you downloaded. Gotcha. And then Lars Ulrich kicks in the door.
Like those were the LimeWire days. Doesn't matter.
The Kazaa days. Bear share. We can go all day. We can member berries until
member berries. Oh, 100%. One thing that back in the day, I remember LimeWire had two versions of LimeWire. It was LimeWire and LimeWire Pro, and you could download LimeWire Pro with regular LimeWire.
It was like, yeah. Well, I
thought I was super smart hacker man back then.
I've got hacker man.
Yeah.
We got, I remember getting Napster like right at the height of the Metallica thing, and then like a buddy of mine was like, nah dude, Napster's dead, now you got to use Kazaa. And then someone was like, nah, Kazaa's dumb, you got to use BearShare. And then LimeWire. And then the real turning point in sailing the seas of piracy was when a buddy of mine goes, nah, you guys got to get torrents. And I was like, torrents? He goes, yeah, you got to get on Scrape Torrent and find yourself some files.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy. But those days are long behind me.
I feel the same. I was deep into the torrents as well.
Yeah. It was a very 2007 kind of thing for me.
Back when Mega Upload was still around.
Yeah.
Oh man, Frostwire. No, I've not heard of that. Was that another one?
That sounds familiar.
I used it because I thought it was cooler. Wow.
I mean, it sounds cooler. Frostwire. It sounds like what they like a black metal band would use out in like Sweden or Norway. They'd be like, "Yes, man, you can only get my True Cult album on Frostwire. It's nothing but HM2 plugged into solid state Marshall maxed." And then they put it on Frostwire. It's the coldest of piracy sites.
The coldest of piracy sites. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never heard of Frostwire. That's good to know, though. I'm gonna have to look that up. Not download it, but look it up. Just the history, because that shit is just like the wild, wild west of music when it was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about connection, and then going from there, let's talk about being in metal bands.
Okay.
Just because when it comes down to it, music is something that I feel like is kind of like gaming, where it's sort of a good foundation to like meet other people or have like a common interest.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No. I'm just vehemently agreeing with you. It's
yeah.
And I mean, those worlds overlap pretty heavily, more and more, right? Like the nerds used to be the nerds and the metalheads used to be the metalheads, and then we all grew up in the same era where the nerds and the metalheads were like, wait a second, I like crusty riffs and pirating music. Like, this is great. And so
so now I'm playing Quake while I'm listening to
yeah. The perfect encapsulation of all of that is clearly Doom 2016, right?
Yes.
That's where the worlds finally came together.
Yeah, the perfect and harmonious like way. Yeah. So you and me both have a history of metal bands, and you've been in bands since high school. So let's talk a little bit about that. What was your introduction to like metal music? Was that something that like your parents introduced you to, or a friend, or how did that happen?
All right, so wait, is the question metal music or the question bands?
We're gonna start with metal music because I feel like that always comes before the band shit happens. Or was it the other way with you?
It was the other way around for me. I didn't like metal until later.
Really?
Okay. I didn't get into. I can tell you, it was middle school. I can tell that. No, so the bands thing. It was also in middle school, but like 6th grade maybe. And my buddy Josh like came over to my house to hang out, and he brought an acoustic guitar, and he was like, my dad has this acoustic, and I'm going to learn to play acoustic guitar because then I can get a girlfriend. I was like, oh my gosh, I want a girlfriend too. And so, so he's like showing me how to play acoustic guitar, and he goes, yeah, man, like me and this other kid, we're going to start a band, and we need someone to be in the band. I was like, oh, I want to be in the band and get a girlfriend too. And so like I said I would play guitar in the band, and I basically just borrowed his dad's acoustic and poorly strummed on it, with them, and we were a band, which was, we learned Smells Like Teen Spirit, and that was it, and we could play that one song in my parents' basement poorly, and not even the whole song, I don't think, and not correctly either, because what are you going to do when you're in 6th grade and you're playing on your borrowed friend's acoustic guitar? But yeah, so that would have been the first band, which was called NZXT, which was Nirvana and Tenacious D smushed together, because those were our 2 favorite bands. We were like, yeah, we're gonna be called NZXT. We're gonna make it big and get girlfriends, which I'll spoil that story. We didn't make it big or get girlfriends from NZXT, but that would have been the first band. And then the metal interest hit, and then that led to the like first more not established, but like a band that actually wrote our own stuff or learned more than just Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. So you were in band prior, like school band.
Yep.
Right? And then transitioned to metal music. So what was like, was it a slow transition, or did you hear that, like, did you hear one band where you were like, fuck, that's crazy, I've never heard this before?
One band, one song, one flash animation. Do you remember stickdeath.com?
Stickdeath.com. I'm looking it up right now.
So Stick Death was a Flash animation site, much like Newgrounds, much like there was another one called like Albino Black Sheep, maybe. And so Stick Death had, Flash animations of just like hyper violent stick figures killing each other.
Yes.
And generally had some kind of soundtrack to it or a thing on it. And it was just post 9/11, whenever the height of Islamophobia is going on and the height of like fucking hyperbolic American nationalism is kicking into overdrive, and I'm eating it up because I'm in 7th grade, and what else are you gonna fucking do than hell yeah the flag? And so the Stick Death people put up a video. I can't remember the title of it, but I remember all it was legit just a video of American troops in an APC with a fucking 50 cal like mowing down dudes in the desert, and like it's like super offensive, and like I'm looking back like in my mind I'm like, man, like why did I think this was okay? But
you were in 7th grade.
You're in 7th grade, and that's what you're told you like. And so
that's like, if you told me 7th grade Steve didn't like that shit, I'd be like, you're probably wrong. Like but I was toxic as fuck,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We'll come back to that. But so the key to that video in my connection music was the soundtrack to that video, and it like they burst into the camp, and like as they started mowing people down, the song "New Abortion" by Slipknot off of their second album Iowa came on, and I remember listening to it and being like, this is the angriest music I've ever heard. He's just screaming and he's yelling. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so like, I was like, this guy, he's feeling what I'm feeling as a 7th grader going through puberty. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And so my mom had somehow, like, for whatever reason, she like very shortly thereafter was like, hey Bob, do you want any CDs? I have one of these, the Reader's Digest pay whatever amount and get 10 CDs things. And I was looking through it and I saw the band Slipknot in there. I was like, that's that band from that Flash video from Stick Death. I want to get that CD. And so I got a copy of Iowa, and that was it. Like, I was hook, line, and sinker into new metal. I was like, Roadrunner Records is the best record label ever. Slipknot is the best band ever. Like, anything that's not Slipknot's a bunch of posers. And that was it. That was my introduction into aggressive music.
Wow.
And it all went downhill from there.
Did you have any like emo music prior to doing that, like the HXC scene music, or was it just metal?
Well, no, because the scene stuff didn't come out till after that, or at least to my understanding or knowledge.
Okay.
Like I wasn't aware of Seenie Weenie stuff until like that was like 2000. Like 2004, 3-ish, somewhere in there, because that would have peaked or really kicked off when I was in high school, because I did get into that phase.
2004.
So the new metal stuff was definitely my thing up until getting into like Hawthorne Heights and Silverstein.
Okay.
So
the stuff that us emotional boys needed.
Yeah, well, I was right there with you. I wasn't emotional. I got right into it. I was just like, you smile in your sleep.
Dude. Agreed. Yeah, that was. I didn't get into my metal music my metal music experience was. Well, my music experience is really fucking dumb. It's really dumb. I basically listened to Blink-182 exclusively for like most of. I don't know, my teen, like, till I was a freshman in high school. Yeah. Because my parents were super, like, they were super protective of, like, what I could and couldn't listen to. And thank God all the albums, like, that they had were censored or whatever. But,
yeah,
if it had, like,
away with it.
Yeah, I got away with it, essentially is what happened. Yeah, but it was, like, I couldn't watch The Simpsons. There was, like, all this limited shit. The internet was, like, new. So that was, like, my only sort of avenue for like finding things like on Newgrounds and like what that was. But Blink-182, and then my first like dabble into it was like Census Fail, and I was like, okay, I get it, I'm emotional. And then 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge came out from My Chemical Romance, and I was like, I'm crying, like you're doing the whistle along with the one song, the do 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 do, that one. It's like track 4 or something.
On
which album?
Off 3 Cheers.
It
Cheers.
Starts with, with the it's like Western sounding. That whole album's fucking still. I still listen to that album.
I do too. That album is really good. Like that holds up so good. Like I can't really stomach the Silverstein stuff or Census Fail, but like Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge is a bop from front to back.
Yeah.
You really quick rewinding it. You said you're talking about getting the censored versions of Blink-182 stuff.
Yes.
Which reminds me, I don't remember when this would have fit into the metal journey. I want to say it would have still been after discovering Slipknot, but like still within that firm development of my tastes being defined initially by nu metal, right? I went out and like we were hanging out with like my dad and one of my dad's friends who had a boat, and his thing was he liked to like wakeboard behind the boat, and he had a big ass sound system on this boat, and he would put on music while he would go wakeboarding, and they put on a censored version of Limp Bizkit's Chocolate Starfish in the hot dog flavored water, which if you recall, the first song off that hot dog is wonderful. So we were listening to that, and I'm just like, yeah, this is great. Like it's heavy. You do this the whole time, boo do 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 do. You get the bounce. And so I go home, and I'm like, Mom, we need to go up to Sam Goody. I gotta get this CD. She's like, what CD? I go, it's Limp Bizkit. She's like, that's a really dumb name. I go, it is, but their album is really great. It's called Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water. She's like, that's a really dumb name. Completely flying over her head and mine as I'm in 7th grade. And so we pick it up and we put it in the car. And the first lines out of that album are, "It's a fucked up world. What a fucked up place. Everybody's judged by their fucked up face." And my mom turns off the CD and she just looks at me and she's like, "You are not allowed to listen to this with anybody in earshot." And then turns it back on, and I'm like, "Oh fuck yeah, I got away with it."
That's amazing, dude.
How did this happen? They let me keep it after like blaring it in their ears for a moment. She's like, "Nope. Can't listen to this around people, so I can
just me."
just me. And she's just like,
I wonder if your mom was your mom vibing to it?
No, my mom was not. My mom likes Shana Na. My mom likes like acapella groups. That's her jam. She'll listen to acapella all day, but Limp Bizkit was not her jam.
God damn. Yeah, I wish I had parents with like at least somewhat of a good music taste. It was pretty bad growing up. My mom and dad listened exclusively to like pop country, which is just trash, and Bon Jovi, and I fucking hate Bon Jovi as a result of it. It's just like traumatic.
My only Bon Jovi story was I got a free ticket. So I don't know where you're at regionally or city-wise, but in Louisville, they opened up a venue downtown, which is kind of a wasteland. There's nothing in downtown. Nobody goes to downtown for anything except to go to work from 9 to 5, then they leave, and that's why downtown sucks. But they opened a venue down there anyway, and to get people to go, they would give out comp tickets to like bogus shows all the time. Okay. One of those bogus shows that I got a comped ticket to was a Bon Jovi tribute band. They played for 3 hours.
Oh my fucking God.
I didn't know there was 3 hours of Bon Jovi music to listen to. They played it all. Like if you wanted to hear Bon Jovi, like you just had to go see them.
I'm good, dude. Get me the fuck out of there. I would have burned that shit. I'm like, this is insulting. How dare you do this to me?
They got away with it by charging, or they paid for it by the $10 PBRs, but
I bet.
Yeah,
I feel like the so I don't. Did you ever get into hardcore metal? Was that like okay? So I can describe to you the moment this should happen, because like Census Fail, Silverstein, Underoath, these were all like bands that were like, August Burns Red was like the big deviation for me, but I remember listening to, it was fucking weird. It was like CD listening parties were, I'll just give a little breakdown as to like the context in which this occurs. So by junior year of high school, I am like, fuck this place, because for the first 2 years of my high school existence, I was essentially trying to like act and be like everybody else so that I could fit in and not get bullied. And it ended up working to my advantage, just because like during puberty, I became a little bit more handsome and people were like taking notice of that. And then I was like, I had this really shitty girlfriend, like real bad. And then I got back after that like rough breakup, which is already heartache, right? For whatever reason, I didn't understand like how important it was, that breakup was, but yeah, the heartache on top of like being mad that I just like don't fit in with everybody in high school, and then reconnecting with my old family friends who are not associated with me by blood. They're like my family's friends' kids.
Yeah.
So we reconnected. I was getting into drums, and they played bass already. So we started fucking around, and then I introduced them to like my own I grew up with a few kids, and I was like, I'm gonna introduce them to this group. And so I had this super group for like 4 years, where it was like us listening to music, making music, and just being ourselves, which was like fucking unique as shit.
Man.
But we had when I introduced my friend Peter, he was the one who had his own car first, and like the fucking CD sleeve like booklet that had like 34 pages.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
and he kept it under the
yeah.
seat. It was fucking cool, but he would always come over with like, he's like, dude, you got to check out this band. Dudes, you got to check out this band. And the day he brought over the very first album of The Devil Wears Prada, and he puts on Goats on a Boat, we were like, what the fuck is this? What is this shit? What is this? This is crazy. I've never heard anything like this about it in my life. There's no tone, like there's no harmonics or whatever. It's just pure like rage. And I was like, okay. And going back, but it's fucking pretty shitty. But like,
yeah, oh, it is.
It's real bad. But at the time, you know, it was fucking amazing shit. So,
and yeah, that's what you needed at the time. It was what got you to where you needed to go.
It was an outlet.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody about that because they the band. I don't have a specific moment like that for like, because like, you know, the intro to aggressive music was clearly Slipknot. Like I distinctly remember that, you know, clear as day. But the like transition from that new metal stuff into and branching out into more extreme forms of aggressive music like metalcore, or you know, death metal or black metal. I don't have as clear of a pinpoint there, but I do recall that the band that I used to introduce my friend group was there was this Christian music festival in Wilmore, Kentucky called Ichthus. That
doesn't sound very Christian.
Whatever, Ichthus, it's the fish, Daddy. That's the Jesus fish.
It is?
Right? Yeah, look it up. It's Greek. It's
Ichthus sounds like some sort of metal god, maybe. I don't know. That's
that's right. They trick you. They're like, look, you can come to Ichthus Fest, and you're like, oh hell yeah, Ichthus. And then they're just like, here's your Bible. You're like, no, so you tricked me. But
the cross is the wrong way. It's supposed to be upside down.
Hold on now. But yeah, so we were gonna go to Ichthus because my youth group, because at the time I like just become like born again or just rediscovered discovered faith and whatnot, and was real high on that train. And so I was like, I'm gonna go to Ichthus with the church
high
group.
On God.
I was high on God. And so my buddies were going because they were all church kids, for varying degrees of actual faith. You know, they're there out of obligation to their parents, not necessarily out of their own conviction. But which there's another sidebar there. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Ichthus. They're like, well, why would you come? Like, you don't care. I was like, well, no, you know, I'm Christian now. And they're like, okay. And I was like, and I'm really excited to see As I Lay Dying. And that was the band. They were like, as dying, like dead. I'm like, yeah, man, As I Lay Dying. And I remember letting my buddy Chris. We had the same homeroom class freshman year. I remember letting him listen to an As I Lay Dying. It was 94 hours off of Frail Words Collapse, their like first big one on Metal Blade, I think. And they and he was like, he's just doing nothing but screaming, like, because he had listened to Slipknot a little bit. He understood nu metal and like that stuff, but like the metalcore, like just kind of nonstop scream, he wasn't down with yet. And he's like, I don't know, Bob, like this sounds pretty heavy. And I was like, we got to go see him. And so I convinced my friend group there to go down and see As I Lay Dying live. And like after that, they were just like, okay, we get it. They're like, that was so much fun. It was so energetic, and like it was just pumped up, and everyone's just like, hell yeah. And that was the like, I would say the point that they all discovered aggressive music, and that was one of the points that definitely solidified and was formational in my appreciation for aggressive music as like an outlet or a medium through which you can have an emotional connection.
So that's always interesting to me, because I feel like I don't know, the emotional connection to metal music, the feeling of just having that as an outlet. for me, I know where that comes from. It comes from like my household, like growing up the way that I did in an abusive household where like I was not listened to, and I didn't have like an outlet for being emotional. So like it was okay for me to be angry, but like being upset or crying or anything was like not permitted. Yeah. And so this was like the balance of like, you know, being upset at the world and wanting everything to burn, but also like being real sad about it. It was like some weird mix of that. And so it was like, it was a permissible thing is what I'm saying. Like for me to have an emotional outlet that was metal music. Did you find that to be like a similar thing? Like, was that, it just matched the sort of energy that you were looking for, like trying to like find an outlet for?
Yeah, kind of. I would say that the metal piece didn't do the emotional side quite as much as like the freshman or the sophomore year, kind of discovering screamo for like the second wave screamo, the Senses Fail, Silverstein stuff, the like harsh vocals, clean chorus, harsh vocals, clean chorus stuff. Like the metal music and the metalcore stuff that I was into up to that point, it was purely just that like pent up like being mad at the world. I didn't get the like maybe the I'm also sad and mad until getting into like screamo and listening to stuff that was like one notch less aggressive, which is interesting. So you found that emotional connection in the sad piece more in the like metal stuff than you did in like screamo.
Yeah, because like I think it also tied into the instrument I was playing too, because I was playing drums. Yeah. So like it was like easy for me to be like, taking my anger out on things that I'm physically like hitting, But yeah, it like emotionally spoke to me. It's like the same thing with like I remember the one like album that I remember listening to on a regular basis that like matched how I felt in general was and I know it sounds stupid for a lot of people, but for me it was Three Cheers, Three Cheers from Loves?
Four.
Sorry.
Sweet Revenge.
Four Sweet Revenge. And it's just because of the way that Gerard Way sings throughout the entire album. It's like with his whole fucking chest. Yeah. That man is like belting.
It's I'll whole again, we already talked about how that's a banger from front to back, but no, that doesn't even take into account the emotional aspect. I mean, you listen to a song like Helena and you're just like even still today, I still get chills when that chorus hits, and it's just like this crashing tidal wave of emotional energy. You're just like, so long and good night.
So long. Yeah.
It's, I feel that. I didn't get the emotional outlet piece maybe until the screamo side, but when I say emotional, like the sad piece, because anger is an emotion as well. But I felt way more, I guess it's a very basic, and like that's the whole point in some ways, like the music that I was listening to at the time, things like As I Lay Dying, things like Haste the Day, lots of like Christian metalcore stuff. Like it was
August Burns Red.
So they were one I didn't actually end up getting into. They came out like right at the tail end of when I stopped being religious and like started actively avoiding anything that had anything to do with that, because their first album was what, 2006 or 7 maybe.
Messenger. See, I didn't even know
I can Google it here. What am
I remember listening to August Burns Red and not knowing that they were Christian. I just never like, it was one of those things where I went strictly off of like the feeling of the music, and Messengers was the first. What is this?
Thrill Seeker.
2007.
Thrill Seeker was 2005. So yeah, that's about right. Because Thrill Seeker, I remember seeing the album cover, and I remember being like, yeah, I'll check, because someone told me, they're like, well, if you like As I Lay Dying, then you'll like Thrill Seeker, and it just, I didn't give him the chance. Same with like Devil Wears Prada. Like, I started meandering into other stuff. I started getting more into like just regular death metal. I started getting more into, like, oddly at the same time I got way more into like pop punk and like emo and stuff. Like I got really into Green Day after all of that. Like Green Day is a lot of people's inspiration band. I didn't like them until American Idiot. That was the first one I liked, and like I didn't really appreciate them until going back and listening to like Nimrod years later in like college, which that predated American Idiot. But no, the emotional side didn't come probably until listening to softer sounds.
Okay.
Than the aggressive stuff. The aggressive stuff was purely for like, again, just like getting out that energy and feeling feeling pent up and feeling like, just mad at the world and being like, I don't like what changes my body's going through. I was not blessed like you were in puberty. I was an ugly duckling. I still haven't blossomed into the beautiful flower that I could be, but I grew a beard, and that accounts for at least some of it. But not in high school, I was not the belle of the ball in any stretch of the imagination. So, I was pent up about that. I was pent up about, I didn't know how to talk to girls. I still don't know how to.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to make new friends. And on the metal stuff, the aggressive music was the outlet of just the frustration side. And then whenever it was time to be sad, then I would put on, the Early November and put on their acoustic EP and cry in my room, be like, I just found a friend. That was me. And it was very, very divorced, those two emotional experiences for me.
And so like during this time too, while you were discovering music, you were also in bands. So like
Yep.
how you got to connect with your fellow angsty boys?
Yeah.
As we called them. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was your reasoning for wanting to pursue being in a band? I know that you initially mentioned like wanting to get a girlfriend, right? That was the thing. Yeah. So that was the initial like entry point.
Yeah, and it repeated itself, right? So middle school was whenever they were like, hey, like we want to start a band, and they gave me this, I strummed a couple songs on acoustic guitar in middle school. So then high school comes around, and like almost exactly the same scenario plays out, where my same buddy comes to me, he's like, hey, we're going to start a band, different people. And he's like, we need a bass player because I'm going to play, he's like, I'm going to play drums because I'm going to ask my parents for a drum set. And he's like, and Jared's going to ask, he has a guitar and this guy has a guitar, but we need a bass player. And I was like, well, the bass player doesn't ever get a girlfriend, but maybe this time he will. So I asked for a bass for my birthday and got it freshman year. And so I was the bass player in that band, which never actually formed, like as would happen, I got the bass. I was like, hey, I got this bass. I'm ready to, we can jam. And I think we got together one time and then never got together as that group of guys again. But shortly thereafter, me, that same drummer dude, and then two other friends started our first band, To Die For. And we, had maybe 5 original songs. We covered Memphis Will Be Laid to Waste by Norma Jean, if that's a throwback. Because again, that's a song that's 2 parts and very easy. It's mostly just open and chugs.
Yeah.
And we learned like Rockin' in the Free World by Neil Young for whatever reason. We're just like, yeah, we'll play that. That's a great song. And then I think we've covered The Ocean by Led Zeppelin. But so we started playing shows. We played, I think, 3 or 4 live shows in my town I grew up in Jasper, Indiana, which is just a podunk little. It's not podunk. It's the biggest town in DuBois County. It's the cultural hub of DuBois County at a whopping population of 17,000. So, not a big spot, but somehow it had a pretty active music scene whenever I was right at the time that I would be playing music. And, we played some shows at the VFW Shelter House with that band, and then eventually it fell apart, as bands do, and as high school things kind of fall apart. And so that band splintered, and then we got a different drummer. And I remember to this day, we met this kid, Eric Harrison, who came over, and we were like, we want to like, To Die For is like not going to play anymore, but we're going to start a Southern metal band because we're all listening to Maylene and the Sons of Disaster, and we were like, we're going to do that. We're going to be called Walt Whitman, and because the vocalist and the bass player, because I'd moved to guitar at that point, the bass player had just done a like project in their English class about Walt Whitman. And they're like, that's a great band name. We'll just be called Walt Whitman, and we'll turn the I into an exclamation point. It's marketing. It's great.
Marketing.
So, they're way ahead. They're high school juniors or whatever. They're just
way ahead. Yeah.
We're marketing it. We're going to send it to Ferret Records. And so we call up this kid, and they're just like, this kid's from Dubois, which is the city north east of Jasper, even smaller. I think it's maybe 5,000, if that. And so we're like, yeah, he plays in the marching band up there. He's a drummer. And so he comes over to my house, and we're like, hey man, nice to meet you. Nobody really knew him. We just knew he liked metal, and we knew he could play drums, and that's all you need to be in a band.
That's true.
Out. Know how to play drums and like metal. And so we're like, yeah, dude, like, you think you could, play metal with us? He's like, yeah, I like metal. And we're looking at him set up, and all he set up was a kick drum, a hi-hat, and a snare. And we're all sitting there like, is that his whole kit? Like, what's happening here? And I will be goddamned if he didn't play the best drumming I have ever experienced in my life of 32 years. He played circles around anything I've ever experienced, just jamming in our basement, playing these terrible, like, butt rock Maylene riffs. And we're like, hell yeah, Eric, you are in, and we're going to take over the world. Walt Whitman. And then, like, 3 months later, we played our first show at a Days Inn at like 11 at night in the Days Inn conference room, and pissed off management. And then we were never allowed to play there again. And then, like, 2 days after that show, he was like, my mom doesn't want me to play metal anymore, so I have to quit.
Oh my God.
Son of a bitch. And that was the end of Eric's tenure in Walt Whitman.
That was the death of Walt Whitman.
Yeah, exactly. So it went on for some other drummers and stuff, but that was the end of that iteration.
Okay. Well, initially, I mean, it seems like you went in with, like, not the best intentions, right? Selfish intentions, but
highly selfish.
Yeah, but now you're still doing the whole band thing, right?
Yep.
So
it's still just as selfish. No, it's not quite as selfish. It's, I mean, if you're making, like, I think it is a fair thing to say is if you're putting anything out there, if you are creating, there is an element of selfishness that has to be had, right?
Yes.
You're doing it for your own fulfillment, and that definitionally is selfish. It's not functionally and not negatively selfish. You have to take care of yourself. But yeah, no, we're still doing band stuff on the regular. And it's a little selfish, but it's the creative outlet, right?
Right. So. Right. So is that like your main way of, I guess your alternative form of connection outside of streaming is through music making? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the emotional catharsis machine, right?
Okay.
That's the pot into which we dump the ingredients, or we pour out and empty out the emotional muck into the cauldron, and we stir it up, we put a fire under it, and craft some songs, and then the fumes get up into the air, and then you've got your emotional catharsis, and you're done. Send it on its way.
So tell me a little bit more about the emotional catharsis. What's the thing that you're seeking to, like, remedy? What are the feelings that you're looking to?
Man, that's a really good one. It's one of those things. I don't know if you're similar. I've had the same kind of frustrations and the same kind of just general anger and anxiety and sadness that have persisted since puberty, just never really subsided, right? And so music's always been the spot where I can verbalize or what's the word? Create. I can take that emotional energy, right, and you can bundle it up into some kind of a product or into some kind of output that you can then say, all right, well, I've taken this emotional energy and I've changed it into something else, and so it's not inside still like poison. It's now out there, and I can address it either by continuing to use it for other purposes, like meeting new people or playing shows or doing things that give me emotional fulfillment otherwise, or I can say, well, this is done, and shelve it and say, well, that thought is now gone, and I've turned it into something else, and I can move on. And if I have other emotional feelings, I can take those and turn them into that lump of coal and put them away again,
So well, I guess this is an interesting topic, because what could be perceived, and this was the case for me. So for me, music and playing drums and like being in a band and making metal music and listening to metal music and the behaviors that I exhibited during that time, like it seemed like it was almost futile. Like it was an unquenchable hole, or like an unfillable hole that I was carrying with me. Yeah. And the best way, I guess, I figured out how to address that or understand what that is, has been a lot of like self-reflection, and for me it's been like sensory deprivation tanks, or like working out without music, or like meditation, or edibles, like being really like getting really baked, and like you know, talking to myself in the mirror. Like, it sounds super weird, but you know, there's different remedies for everybody, right? To turn into that like product, right? So do you think that like music is more of an escape than it is like an actual dealing with the issue, or is it like a coping mechanism to just, because like, have you come to term, like, forgive me if I'm getting a little bit off out there, but does it seem like this is something that you're carrying with you constantly and you just don't know what to do with it, or are you still figuring it out? Like, what do you think about all that?
Well, both of those for sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, you never really, I'm speaking for myself, right? Because my experience is different from your experience and such, and everybody. But speaking for myself, like it never really goes away, right? It just gets changed, or it gets subdued, or it gets addressed even if momentarily. And sometimes those moments are long, and sometimes those moments are short. Sometimes, you know, I will wake up and I'm like, well, I'm feeling depressed today, and that's just how it's going to be. And I can, you know, work through it and just kind of let it sit and metabolize. And sometimes it takes care of itself without needing anything, and other times it needs some other kind of address, whether that's isolating, like you're talking about the sensory deprivation tanks and stuff. If it's isolating and saying, you know, I'm going to step away from it and use that time to self-reflect. If sometimes it's doing the opposite, and it's throwing myself out of my normal comfort zone, which is very introverted, and saying, you know what, like, I'm going to go to Mag Bar and I'm going to sit with people I don't know, and I'm going to try and talk to them. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it just makes it worse. And it's really hard to kind of tell how that works. And other times it's, well, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write some lyrics to a song, and I'll just take what I'm feeling and try and put it out there in either as simplest terms or in more artistic way in the lyrics. And then I can come back to that whenever we have music, or sometimes it's taking it and writing a riff and being like, I'm going to try and take that feeling and bundle it up into a riff, and then that's what we can use for another song and be creative or proactive and constructive with. But at the end of the day, like, all of those ultimately are just addressing, I guess, the issue temporarily, because it doesn't ever fully leave. It's not what 16, 17 years been ever like, well, now I'm not depressed anymore, now I'm totally happy all the time. That's not what happens. Or at least for me, it hasn't happened for me. If it's happened for other people, that's fucking great, and I'm super excited to hear that.
You sound like you're a little upset about that.
I'm a little envious. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
I honestly, a lot of people talk about this though. They talk about it like, I cured my depression. There's a lot of like false shit happening in regards to like mental health and the perspective of like resolving somebody's issues and the things that they are dealing with. And you can call them issues, you can call them like, for me, like I have a shadow version of myself, and I know what that person like looks like. I know like the behaviors, and a lot of it has to do with like the negative behaviors of like my ADHD, but basically that person never is gone. Like, and I think that the idea that you will just be fine one day is not a really great way of portraying what mental health is for a lot of people. And like, I'm not a mental health expert or whatever. Either. Y'all saw the intro like to the show, you know, I'm not an expert, that whole line. But I think it's important to talk about this, because a lot of people, they deal with a lot of like mental anguish over the fact that like, I'm not okay, but everybody else is.
Yeah, or seems to be.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I always have to remind myself with. I don't know if you have similar experiences. One thing that I always struggle with and have to like consciously think about is I have a tendency to compare my experiences or my emotional states to others or performance. I'm always like looking at other people. I'm like, and part of that is just it's that selfish thing of wanting to succeed. And so you're like, well, what are other people doing to succeed? So that sometimes it's as innocuous as being like, all right, let's look at what are Spotify plays up to on my band versus another band that we're friends with, and being like, well, they're way ahead of us. And some days I look at that and I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, like they kill so good. Like Volcandra is one of the best bands in Louisville. I'm doing that sly plug right there. They are so good. But I go and I'll look at their plays, and some days I'm like, I know those guys. Those guys are my buds and they're my friends, and I'm just fucking pumped for them. And then other days I'm like, son of a bitch, like what do we have to do to be cool? How can we get plays? And, it's acknowledging that those are both valid feelings, but also acknowledging that one of those can be constructive and the other one is doing nothing to help the situation.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like the interconnectedness. No, you're good. You're good. The interconnectedness of like being able to go on Spotify and look this shit up is like, it amplifies that even more. Like the voice can be louder,
because the voice is validated, right? Because like in your gut,
it has a tangible thing. Yeah.
I can look at a metric and go, I'm not only like, I can in my head tell myself all day, like, you're not as cool as someone. And like, I can maybe rationalize my way, be like, well, that's not rational. But then I go look at a number and I'm like, well, I'm, 1,000 plays less cool than them. You're like, fuck, like that's the number.
Yeah. I already knew that there was a lot of ways to go, but now I'm 1,000 plays less than them. Like, fuck. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
that's I think like just circling back really quick, that perspective of like everything will be fine, like eventually. The best advice that I ever got or that I ever got related to this sort of topic was a talk that I had at work. It was oh my god, why can't I think of his name right now? I had it and then like ADHD was like, yo dude, remember? No. Basically, my work had like a conference where they invited this guy to be on the stage and share his life experience. Hold on. Yes, David Goggins. Are you familiar with him at all?
I'm not, which is kind of surprising because my previous job loved that kind of stuff. Like, let's get a guy in to talk, pep talk our folks. You said David Goggins. Right.
David Goggins, yeah. So like a lot of people, my work is this. It's a white collar company. So like many white collar companies, they celebrate quotes and there's a lot of generic positivity that goes around. Very similar to how like most environments are, especially on Twitch. Like positive, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, keep the grind on, like all that bullshit. But it doesn't actually address like the gray area, which is where I like to thrive. So. David Goggins, he's giving his speech, and he's a huge, like, accomplished dude. He was in the Marine Corps, he went to Ranger School, like all of these things, and he wrote a whole book on it and how he used to weigh like 300 pounds, all this shit. And the whole time they're talking about this shit, he's being asked these like what I would be considered softballed questions. They're like just they're asking him about something specifically accomplished, and his response, and he's a no bullshit kind of guy, so he's like being very candid about it. He's like, yeah, that's the shit I had to do. That's the shit that I had to do to like get through that moment, blah blah blah. And it's like I just happened to raise my hand, because I was feeling fucking brave. I was like, I should be up there talking to him, And that's how I felt, the comparison thing. I was like, you're just here to
this asshole telling us that's what he had to do.
Yeah, like I understand what this is, okay, but like you're talking to David Goggins. This man is a badass motherfucker. That's what he refers to himself as. And you're not asking him questions that like I feel like should be answered. So I fucking raised my hand, and so his whole thing is that he has a alternative or ulterior personality, and he just calls it Goggins. Okay. And so like the idea is that he is trying to strive to be Goggins most of the time, right? So my question was, like, hey, I know that, like you mentioned before, that you have this like alternative persona, this thing that you created that helped you push through these really tough times in your life. And I just have a question related to this, because like I would consider that like the shadow version of yourself. And he's like, fucking dude, he's that like when I started talking, he made eye contact with me and he was like rows in front of me, like he was staring at me, and he's just nodding his head and he's like smiling like he knows what I'm gonna fucking ask. And I was like, and I gotta ask, like, is that version of yourself, like, is that shadow version of yourself there still? And is the running and the stretching and like these workouts and all the shit that you're doing, like, is that to like, you know, keep that dude in check, like the shadow version of yourself in check? And like he just stopped, like he interrupted me. He's like, I'm just gonna answer your question right now. He goes, because I can't wait. He's like, I wake up with that motherfucker every day, and he's right there whispering shit into my ear about how I'm not good enough, about how I'm never gonna get through the day, all of this stuff. And he goes, and it's taken me years to get that guy to shut the fuck up for at least 5 minutes so that I can get up, put my running shoes on, and go. Every day when I'm putting my shoes on, like to go running, I have this dude on my back just telling me I'm nothing every fucking day. And he's like, and that shit used to kill me. Like I wanted to kill myself. And I was like, I mean, that obviously that method doesn't work for everybody, but just him acknowledging, him being the successful person in the room, right? And being admired by all, and being like, this shit, I'm still dealing with this person that's on my back, this shadow version of myself. It was so validating. It was like freeing, because now it's like the rules don't fucking matter anymore. Everything that has anybody has ever told you about mental health in the perspective of like generic positivity, and you're going to be fine if you just work hard enough or go to therapy enough or take your medication. Like it's not, it's like for it to be completely gone as an expectation is bullshit, and just throw that shit away. And everybody's got their own fucking thing they're dealing with.
It's very way less, what's the word? Like in different scale. Like it's similar thematically to that, like in maybe you've had this experience too. One of the things that has consistently helped me, at least in like maintaining myself in check, is like the toxic positivity thing, right, is like all like it's all over Twitch, it's all over people's discords. Like there's people that post in discords like, hey, like every day they're just like, you are valid and you are so great and everything, you can do it today. And I look at that and I just skim past it because I'm like, this doesn't add anything. But what does help me is when I see people that I'm like, I respect this person, I know that they are like a legit human being, and that they, you know, I've had some connect, and I see them just even something as simple as like, hey, I'm not feeling great today, and so I'm gonna take a me day. And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Like that's so, like, to me, that's the most real as it gets. Like this person is not only like, I respect them and they're acknowledging that they also need to have a me day sometimes. I'm just like, fuck yeah. Like that feels so real and so human and validating, in that like you're not, like, that's the most tangible evidence that you're not alone in the way that you feel, and you're not alone in being frustrated, or you're not alone in like needing that extra day to yourself, right? This person that you know is also saying that, and they're not doing a post specific to be like, hey man, like you got to take care. They're just saying, I'm just sharing my experience and letting you guys know and peeling the curtain back a little bit, and then I'm gonna go take care of things. And like something as simple as that, for whatever reason, that always clicks with me in my experience.
Yeah, I think like that's the human experience is one of those things where we're all kind of like silently suffering by ourselves when we think we're alone. And when somebody says something that's like even remotely similar to how you're feeling, you're like, God damn, dude.
Yep.
That I'm glad I'm not just the only person dealing with this shit. And I don't know, it's so weird to feel isolated and alone and see something online, or just have somebody talk about it, or just share their own personal experience. And you're just like, dude, this is exactly what I fucking needed, you know, just for this moment, just to help me like understand that, like, yeah, it sucks right now, but I've always got tomorrow and the day after. And like, I'm working every day to get to a point where like, I feel like I can be more me. And really, I think that's what it comes down to. I really think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting because, again, and I don't know if you have this this experience. For me, it seems like the smaller things are the things that mean more to me on that wavelength, right? It's not the big gestures. It's things that people aren't even trying to make a gesture out of. It's just people living their life and doing what they need to do to get by, and not even making a deal of it. Like just seeing them do that, I'm just like, man, fuck yeah. Like, okay, like they're doing it, I can do it. Like it is gonna be all right. Like that's the thing that clicks for me. Do you have a similar feel on that?
Yeah. I think it's just like even just sharing like perspective about like getting coffee or somewhere, or like some nice small thing that somebody did for us, like I don't know, it's just it's really nice. Like it's really nice to hear other people's experiences. It's the whole reason why I wanted to do this show. You know, like it doesn't matter. That's why I was like the schedule. It's not about me approaching people anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's not just that outlet. Like whatever your experience is, if you want to talk about it on the show, like it's valid. Like
well, that's what I felt. So again, you mentioned on the intro that I was the first person to respond. I was like, that can't possibly be right. And I feel so fortunate that you've provided this platform, and you've been providing this platform for folks to come on and talk, and again have that experience and have that connection with one another and share that. I think that's so cool.
Thanks,
so cool.
Man. I appreciate you taking the initiative. I know it was like, we're just in a weird space, so it's like, I'm glad that I've created a part on the internet, and just that like vibration out into the universe for people to be like, yeah, dude, I'm fucking down to talk. What do you want to talk about? I was like, we'll figure it out. I don't give a shit your reasoning for doing it at all, like selfish intentions or whatever. Like I'm also one of those dudes that I'll just be straight up. I'll be straight up with somebody. I'm like, I don't think it's going to be a good show, and here's why. I feel like this is going to be like self-promotion or whatever. I'm not afraid to have those hard conversations, because I've been doing that shit my entire life,
Yeah. That's a skill I've never been able to master, is the crucial conversation, as they told us at my previous corporate spot. Having crucial conversations with folk is not my strong suit. That's why I don't manage people anymore.
Yeah, I think it's a skill that has to be practiced, but like a lot of that comes from like my own parents. After like going through the traumatic experiences of growing up, having to still interact and be in a decent relationship with them, and understanding my own behaviors and learning how to speak to people and like all of this shit. It's been like navigating the ways of conversation is an art form when you've got somebody who's got a mental illness.
It's so interesting, because like my background is so different in many respects from that, in that like I had the inverse. Like I feel like I learned how to do the very waspy thing and just bullshit and internalize and like put on the face and be like, oh yes, like senior director, everything's great. And like I still have trouble, like even when my boss comes to me is like, we hired you because you're super fucking smart and good at this and you know what you're doing. You need to tell the people above us, like me and my boss, he's like, you need to tell them what you think and tell them that something is a bad idea, because if you don't, then we're all screwed. And I'm just like, yeah, but like they're the big boss. I can't do that. Like that's not the waspy thing. I have to go, yes, of course, you're the leader. I follow you right into the dirt. We're fine. And like,
worst case scenario, they just get fired and you're in their position.
And I've been there and I hated it, because then I was the person that had to talk to everybody, have crucial conversations. That's why I'm out of there.
I feel like having like the negative specific feedback conversation is really difficult, because like that was something that like I literally was trained on. And I remember when I was like 22. No. Yeah, I was 22, 23 when I had my first like training on how to give feedback and everything, when I got my new job. And I was just like so blown away that shit wasn't taught to me, or like a thing that was necessary for like my development as a human being super early on. Because like that, when I got trained on that for work, like the way, I mean, it wasn't even training for work. It was, it was just, it was called like feedback training, essentially what it was. And it was for like relationships and managing relationships with people. It wasn't just like about work. It was the first time that like training for me in any capacity in my career of like learning anything was not related to the job.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm a fucking person. you know, for the first time, because I was working at Best Buy for like 3.5 years, and it was my first training, and I was like, dude, I'm a person. This is amazing. I didn't know this shit. And then like when I got home, my relationship started changing because like now I'm navigating the pathways of conversation with somebody who's like illogical and doesn't know how to like manage their emotions. And so I was able to do it. I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe they didn't give me this shit earlier. And then like all my relationships got better, you know, like it was like, yeah.
So what I'm taking from this is you're saying that I need to go take some people managing courses and learn.
You can just watch my YouTube video. I got
drop it, or it's in the Discord.
It's in the Discord. If anybody's not following the YouTube channel, this is where all our links are. It was actually I thought it was a pretty decent video, but the story behind that video, and you'll hear it in the beginning, but the internet was out, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna take an edible and chill. And so the internet came back on, and I was feeling a little bit saucy, and I was like, I'm gonna do this fucking. I was gonna do the whole presentation completely sober, and then I just got super ambitious, and I was like, you know what?
Loud and spicy it is.
A little bit loud and spicy, yeah.
That's good.
A little stony-eyed.
A braver soul than I. I don't think we'll see. Maybe we'll get loud and spicy sometime. If it worked for you, we'll give it a try sometime.
Hey, you're not gonna know until you try it, you know.
It's true. You're not gonna know until you try it.
Oh man, yeah. That was a really good. I like how we ended up here in the conversation. Yeah, that whole like remedying what you're trying to do, and I feel like that's where we left off, right? Was like remedying your demons, the shadow version of yourself. Like it's just not possible, and it's just years of work, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, for me, the frustrating thing, and this kind of gets back to the music piece, right? The frustrating thing for me is like sometimes like the outlet itself can be instead of correcting it or addressing it or helping to transform those feelings, it just compounds it if it's not clicking for whatever reason. So one of the things I've had to start like really paying attention to is being aware, like if I'm going into like writing or going into doing something, and I'm like, you know, I'm doing this as his outlet and it's not clicking, like just going, all right, abort, like we don't need to spend any more time here because it's only going to go further downhill, and I'm just going to get more and more discouraged by it, and I'll be like, you know what, like fuck it, like we shouldn't even be a band because I can't even write a song right now, this is terrible, and I'll get in my head about it. And so I have to be very aware whenever I'm starting to write, if I go into writing in that headspace, like, you know, like you have to pull the plug at some point if things don't turn, you know, like, and that's okay. I mean, well, that's okay to reset, you know? Yeah,
what you're talking about. We touched on this in our like pre-talk show conversation about like how you're becoming a better version of yourself, and that's part of it. That's like
being aware.
Being aware. Like it's just being aware and understanding like where your feelings are headed in the moment, and like the because you only know that from like rinsing and repeating the same shit to the point where you're spiraling or like you're out of control, or like there's a threshold you pass where you're like, okay, this was not a good time. You know? And so that's a lot of growth, man. That's really good. Like it's just that's a really good thing to be aware of.
Taken a long time to get to that point. Because I mean,
as it should though.
Yeah, it's not like I like as trying to be as straight a shooter as you said you were going to be, or you said you were going to be on the beginning, but then you highlighting that you are a straight shooter. You know, it's a long process, and I haven't always been the best at being, and I'm still not the best at being aware of where I'm at or being aware of my emotional state. But there's a couple mental and emotional cues that I've like trained, like you said, rinsed and repeat and trained myself on, where I'm like, if I feel it, I'm like, I know to step away from guitars or step away from writing, or, you know, tell my wife and be like, hey, I'm in a funk and I'm going to be a butt for just a little bit, and just be aware that I'm in that funk. And if I need something, I'll try and let you know, but just know that that's what's going on. She's like, all right, cool. Do you want some ice cream, or do you want to go get Skyline? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to get Skyline. Now I feel way better. This is perfect. So
Yes.
you know,
See, that's beautiful. That's managing relationships, man. That's really what it is. You're being proactive about how you're feeling and just being transparent about it. Like that's something that I'm working on myself. It's very hard for me to ask for help. So usually what happens is, sorry, go ahead.
It's incredibly hard. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah,
like,
it's a stubborn man thing, you know?
Yeah, you feel weak. You're like, oh, no, I'm the man of the house. Again, my upbringing was waspy, you know? You're supposed to internalize your feelings. You're not allowed to have feelings.
Yes.
Your only feelings you're allowed to have are being mad and tough.
Mad and tough.
Mad and tough. And those go hand in hand sometimes. Sometimes you're so mad that you get tough. Sometimes you're so tough that you have to be mad about it. And that's hard to break. So
it is, yeah. But you're coming out of your shell though, and that's really good. I mean, I feel like aggression and being mad, like that's just something that, like, you know, as a boy, it's kind of reinforced pretty much a majority of your life, especially in the metal scene. Yeah. You know, like that, just being in metal bands and like, we've played a few shows and like just encountering other people who were in the bands, in like other metal bands and people at the shows. It was just a lot like I think the epitome of that is the dude who's in the center of the pit, just swinging his arms, trying to hurt himself and other people.
I was actually just right there with you mentally. Like I was thinking, I was like, I'm going to talk about crowd killing, because that shit, I'm just like, God, like what like you just said, it's the perfect encapsulation of just that, like, like I am the biggest, toughest guy. I feel bad, so I'm going to hurt other people or just like, or, you know,
or put myself at risk. Yeah.
I have to show how tough I am. And the only way I know how to show how tough and manly I am is to spin kick a 15-year-old. And you're just like, why? Yeah. and it's, you know, I'm sure there is, I'd be interested to look it up at some point. I'm sure there's been some form of research or writing or academia on those kinds of things, the connection between, you know, the idea of what is masculine and, you know, a metal music or rock music or whatever, what have you, and what is the tie in there, in what the images you're seeing are, you know, what's presented as, like, what is the archetype of the metal guy, and if that is consistently shown as X, how does that impact a group of people that see that as this is what the archetype of the metal guy is, and does that create a hostile environment for people that aren't that are trying to come in? I would imagine that the answer is yes. I would imagine that because I mean, you hear stories about, you know, like women don't feel welcome in metal, and members of the LGBTQ community don't feel welcome in metal because the archetype is, you know, big, muscly, tough white guy. And you're just like, well, that doesn't have to be that. That's just what seems to have been propagated. And so the more that we see those other demographics coming in and other life experiences coming in, because again, metal and I think you see it more in the hardcore and punk communities traditionally, especially in the 80s, but more and more of those communities said, you know what, this, like, we are a group of outsiders, and it very quickly and early on said, we're the group of outsiders and we don't care if you're black or gay or anything. Everybody's welcome in punk because punk is for us. And for whatever reason, metal just remained a bunch of meatheads for a little while, generally. And I think it's catching up, and it's starting to change, or it has changed over the past 10 years. But
you can understand how, like, the tones and, like, music that's being created is a natural gravity, like, that's just gravity at that point. You know what I mean? Like, that we were talking a bit, you know, earlier in the cast about how, as somebody who was an angsty, angry person, you know, like that vibrational accord is in tune with drop D. like that's what it is. Like, I don't give a shit what it is. And like, there, to my core, it's still there, because as soon as I listen to like Veil of Maya, or like, I still listen to my all-time favorite like metal album, that isn't like a emotional metal, is Born of Osiris's album A New Reign, and it's specifically just that album from 2007, not the like remade one.
The one with like no mids in it, or sorry, all mids. They didn't have any like bass frequencies in there.
Yeah. Yeah, just from '07, The New Rain. That's it. That's my favorite fucking metal album. And it's just 30 minutes of like, I'm gonna fucking just, yes, like that sort of. I feel like it's just in tone with a lot of like masculine aggression. And when I say that, I guess like, you know, we're just men in general like are more prone to like being aggressive, having aggression, probably not being able to manage relationships. And I think it comes from like just a parenting thing. Cause like you really, I'm interested to see like, you know, if I could go forward in time, I would go like maybe like 300 years in the future, hoping that the earth is still around. But like, it'd be interesting to see how many generations of people it takes for us to have like an open, accepting, like loving sort of environment that sort of fosters that. And like, you know, this shit just like listening to this music, it just feels good and isn't like an outlet anymore. You know what I mean? Because that's where I felt like I was channeling everything. It was a channel for me to like feel these emotions and be upset and like, you know, take all this aggression that I have out and like head bang until my fucking head hurt, you know, go to metal shows and like be with a bunch of people who had been traumatized and hurt, you know, and it's like a way of, not an unhealthy way of therapy, but it's a form of therapy to a certain degree, you know?
It's acknowledgement, right? We were just talking about it's identifying that there's an issue there, and you're saying, hey, I'm having an issue or I'm having that thing, and the way that I'm going to deal with it is fucking headbang, right?
Yeah.
And that's all right. I will lightly disagree with you though.
Sure.
So I it sounds pessimistic, and it's not meant to be. I don't think you'll ever get to that point, like the 300 years in the future, where we can just experience like an aggressive song and just be like, oh yeah, this feels good, because that's the human experience, man. The part of being alive and part of being human is having these feelings to some degree and to varying degrees. Our experiences are obviously differing in the intensity or the frequency or the types or the instigations, but they're there regardless, right? Everybody has them. And that's the key. And I think that they're always going to have them. We're never going to be fully happy, because even the happiest person is still going to find something that they don't have.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's that concept of nirvana is you've moved beyond the mortal needs.
Then we're robots. Yeah.
And so I don't think we'll ever get there. I think the best you can hope for is finding the ideal and the most optimal way for people to address those issues and address those feelings and address those emotions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, awesome. I think that's all I had for the conversation. Does anybody have any questions about like for Lord Bael about like being in a band, or any questions about like what we had talked about? I wasn't expecting to work through all that we had written, actually, like so quickly.
You started talking, I just started talking too.
Yeah, that hour and a half goes by like real quick.
It just cooked, you know. We're cooking with Crisco, as they say.
Make sure you're following Lord Bael on both Twitch and Twitter. I got his links posted there. As far as during this time too, while y'all are thinking about questions, Bael, do you want to find somebody for us to bring our community over to?
Yeah, let me. I'll shoot you a DM here with their name.
Awesome.
So you can drop that in. Yeah, this. It's actually a streamer that. So the guy, my housemate Dysomnium, is one of the three streamers that got me into streaming, along with Shred X Velvet and my buddy Huberto. So a very gentle plug for all three of them if you're not following them. And so, but my housemate Dysomnium tuned me on to Luminous Sky as just like a streamer who's very focused on community and focused on being a positive like space and a very friendly and wholesome spot. So she's currently playing Dark Souls, but she's really great. I've had a lot of fun tuning into her stuff, and I was very appreciative of him queuing me in to their stuff. So I sent that to you in a DM. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Savage Stalker, opinions on Ghost BC? Do bands like theirs do anything that you admire? Ghost BC, I've never.
Ghost is great. I'm surprised.
Oh, the band Ghost. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
so
I
had to
know
change,
Ghost.
they had to go by their. It's super interesting because right, they're Scandinavian or Northern Europe and such, right? They're from like
Mhm.
Sweden or something. And much like the band Him, who was a seminal band in my middle school, high school years, because I was all, you know, you want to be into skateboarding because that's cool. But so the band Him had legal issues with their name, and so did Ghost BC, because like again, there's an American band of the same name called Ghost, but one of them is wildly more popular than the other, and so that's why Ghost BC exists. Yeah, so Ghost is rad. They get so much flack in like the gatekeepery metal arenas because they're like Kiss. They're exactly the same as Kiss. They are a band that looks way more menacing and sinister and like heavy than they are. They play really fun, catchy, like pop rock tunes, and they dress in like you're going to a satanic mass. It's so great. I have nothing but respect for Ghost because they write super good pop music for a dude like me that also likes, you know, Cannibal Corpse and Pig Destroyer and such.
I gotta listen to them because I never had the opportunity to, or like it just never was thrown my way. I don't think it was ever recommended to me.
Yeah, I would recommend listening to their album. Meliora is the one that I would do, and I would specifically say Meliora's deluxe edition that has the extra 5-song EP that includes Square Hammer, which is just a perfectly
Good
written
stuff.
pop song. Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
But that's the answer to that question. Yes,
Awesome.
they're great.
Good question, Savage Stalker. Thank you for asking.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I got to add it to my library. I got an album that you need to check out too, and I'm interested to see what it is because it's Messengers, that August Burns Red album that you never listened to. That shit is
that's a banger. All right, 2007 Solid State. Okay, that gives me a frame of reference of what I expect then.
Yeah, I mean, I think like
they're pretty noodly. They're like doo doo doo. Right? They're the chugs. They're like
right? Not in this album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like 2007 and 2008 is like a really unique period for me, like in general for metal music, just because like it was like there was some experimental shit going in on there, but it was like the most unique time where everybody was kind of like making their own fucking rules about what they could and couldn't do. And Messengers was like, after listening to this album, and finding out they were Christian, I was like, wait, let me go back and like look at this shit. And I'm like I'm reading the lyrics and I'm like, oh, I guess so. I mean, I guess you could look at it like that. But it was
that's the stuff that I love is whenever it's like sometimes it's like hidden in there, and sometimes it's the classic example is Black Sabbath, right? Like Black Sabbath is basically a Christian band. Like if you go look up the song After Forever, it's literally Geezer Butler being like, your friends are going to make fun of you for being a Christian, but when you die, they're going to suffer and you're not. And you're like, wait, Black Sabbath is the Christian band? And you're like, oh shit, they are.
That's
it's great.
Neat.
It's really silly.
I like the term noodly. It is a good way to talk about it though.
Noodly, man.
Yeah.
Noodles. Oodles of noodles.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That was definitely a period of time. Every band was doing that shit.
My band at that time, or one of the bands I was at that time, we did the Avenged Sevenfold. You drop your guy to drop D, you chug, and you play on 5, 7, and 8 of the next string down on your A strings. That's and then you're done. Then you've written a pop song in 2007, and you're gonna make $1 million, or at least
that's how it works. That's how it works. Any other questions before we head over to Luminous Sky? Sorry, Luminous Sky. Any other questions before we end? Going once, going twice. First, I just want to thank y'all for being being so cool and hanging out in the chat. For those of y'all who were asking questions and just like sharing your own experiences. Glyph and Somber, Adam, Ja, James, Savage Stalker, Cletus, thank y'all for being here. For everybody else who was lurking and just listening, I appreciate the heck out of you.
Me too.
If y'all are like interested in coming onto the show and you're not sure where to go for that, xptalkshow.com. You want to support the stream? xptalkshow.com. It's all there. You could book time with me within the scheduler there, just like Lord Bael did, so we can talk over what the show expectations are and all that. If you're interested in any of the charity stuff we've done, it's all listed there. Bael, thanks again for doing the show, and thanks for being so proactive about coming on. I appreciate you scheduling.
It was about as painless of an experience as you could possibly ask for, trying to schedule and getting on here. So thank you for, again, having the platform and the space, but also allowing me to come here and talk my chin off at you, as they say.
Well, we enjoyed it. If y'all, of course, this invite goes on for anybody else here too. But like, if you're not looking to be in the talk show format, again, we do game nights where I'll play like a roguelike and people can call in and talk. And I'm sure you've seen some of that. But if you ever see that happening, you're more than welcome to come join, man.
Might just take you up on that.
All right, you hunks. Thanks for hanging out. This has been the XP Talk Show. Keep an eye out on Twitter for our next episodes, and y'all have a great night. Make sure you're polite in the next streamer's chat or your band. All right. Good night, everybody.